Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. So today we are on episode 9 of Cloak and Dagger. So one more episode left. There was a lot of things happening in this episode, so we're gonna keep it as quick as possible, but you know, he's a little long-winded, so as usual, if you are new to our channel, please make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button and also hit the bell for notifications so that you know every time we do a new video. Also, just in case you didn't hit the bell for the notifications, we actually did do a bonus video on Saturday? A couple
days ago.
Yeah, so we kind of just went in depth about the Comic-Con extended preview and some other fan theories that we had. So if you have not checked out that video, go ahead and do so now. And let's get started.
Alright, so episode 9 of this season. They are really like amping it up for like the wind down these last 2 episodes. There's a lot of good things in this episode. There were some things that made, well, I guess the easy way of saying this episode made us both feel a lot of different things. You know, good things, bad things, mad, happy, sad. A lot of stuff went on in this episode, and so we're gonna dive into all of that. So first thing first, I think the overarching thing in this episode that was pretty much being carried throughout from beginning to end is this whole idea of regression. Both with Tandy and Tyrone, we both see them go through basically like huge steps back to the beginning of where we started, I think, in this show. Yeah. And for both for very good reasons. How about you touch on like basically what Tandy was going through with her form of regression, and then I'll touch on Tyrone's.
So basically Tandy went back to being a butthole. We don't swear, so that's a very light word for her. She figured out that not only can she see people's hopes, but she can take them. And so she's going around taking people's hopes all willy-nilly. One of the ones that really broke my heart was she took Mina Hess's hope. So yeah. Mina Hess wants to basically save the entire planet, and she just took all of that away from her just because she's upset that her dad hits her. Well, he did hit her mom, right? When he was alive, and she found that out in the last episode. Just touching on her mom, seeing into her. Well, it wasn't her hopes. It was
her truth.
Her truth, basically.
Yeah.
And so she's walking around depressed about that, taking people's hopes. And Mina Hesses was just the one that broke my heart the most. But basically, Tyrone finds out because, yeah. Well, as you will touch on, Tyrone was in someone's fears. And because they were, I think, using their powers at the same time, he was able to walk through a door and see what Tandy was doing with her ex-boyfriend's hopes, which she was in the midst of taking his hopes away. So, I mean, it was really juicy episode this week.
And to also touch on with Tandy doing that, it's almost like that was her new drug. You know, what we'd always seen Tandy doing whenever she was getting overly worked up or overly emotional is that she would start drugging herself so that she could kind of like, it was like her high. And it seems like now that she has this ability to steal hopes, it's like, oh, that was her new high. Which I was very shocked by. But I think I thought it was also very cool. As messed up as it is.
Of course you did.
It's cool that like the depth that they're giving their powers and that they're not always using them for good. That they sometimes are using them for very selfish reasons, or at least Tandy is.
I was about to say, I don't think Tyrone's used them for a selfish reason yet, except maybe to get the confession out of.
Yeah, but even that was like for a good reason.
I mean, it was a good reason, but it was a selfish reason. Right.
So yeah, so that's basically what Tandy went through this episode. While Tyrone, on the other hand, his regression is back to him being forced to not knowing how to control his emotions. I think we had finally got to a point in this prior to this episode where Tyrone was very comfortable with his emotions. He was very good at you know, speaking through them, and also not being defined by his previous emotions, not being so defined by his fear and his anger and kind of moving past it. Exactly. Well, this episode, we see him going back to that because he's going through all of this work to bust Detective Connors, to only have it basically amount to nothing. And I don't necessarily mean nothing in the sense of the justice system, because it hasn't played out far enough.
Right.
I think it was more so for him the fact that his parents were numb still, that they gave him nothing. And I think that's who he cares more about getting a reaction out of. He was looking more of, look, I'm giving you ammunition to fight.
Exactly.
And they weren't.
Yep.
And you see him start to lash out. And when they're basically telling him to shut up and be quiet about it, essentially in so many words and so many actions, to shut up, be quiet about it, keep it locked down, we finally see the effects of that, which is Tyrone explodes.
Yeah.
And his emotions come out in the most volatile of ways. He gets into a fight with some random kid, like somebody who accidentally bumped him, and he just sets off, gets into a fight. He lashes out at the head priest of the school, and like Khalil was saying, he in like a quick little scuffle, the priest grabs onto him, and he's able to see his fears, which are the secret that I'm assuming that he accidentally killed a little girl while drinking and driving.
Drinking and driving. That's what I got from it.
And that's his greatest fear. It's his greatest shame. So you have somebody else that Tyrone looks up to, and he's finding out this dark secret about him. And in the midst of doing all of that, like you were saying, he sees this door that just so happens to be in this memory, I guess, so to say. And by doing that, and by going through that door, like you were saying, he ends up in Tandy's hope thing that she was doing with Liam, and sees her, like you were saying, taking away Liam's hope.
Yep.
And the thing that's crazy is like what happens after that. Is like the whole interaction between Tandy and Tyrone, because Tandy feels like like Tyrone was purposely trying to be there, when in actuality, like Tyrone ends up telling her, like, I have my own issues. I have my own things that I'm going through. I don't need yours. I don't need to be in your head to see what you're going through and what you're doing. I have enough problems on my own end. Which leads me to think that like this wasn't just the fact that they were using their powers at the same time. I think it's more so, we've seen this happen before, where Tyrone is pulled to Tandy whenever she is abusing her powers. And it's like he's her, or they're each other's anchors to remind each other, hey, you're going overboard.
Right.
And we saw that the first time when Tyrone showed up at, like, during his basketball game at the banquet that Tandy was at. And he basically said, look, you're doing too much with your powers. And so I feel like this is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Outside of those two, we also see Detective O'Brien dealing with, you know, the aftermath of finding her boyfriend. O'Reilly. What did I say, O'Brien?
Yeah.
O'Reilly finding out that, dealing with the consequences, or finding out the aftermath of her boyfriend being murdered.
Right.
And obviously, like some people do when they grieve, she's drinking heavily, but at the same time, we also see the interaction with her and Detective Connors, which I know you, when watching this, like, you immediately were just like, what the heck is going on? Yeah,
I'm just wondering, like, why did they think him beating up a woman was so okay? Like, I understand that she started it. I get that. But, I mean, he's beating her down. And there was even a woman cop there, and nobody was saying a thing. So it was just really strange. And it does kind of make it look like, are they crooked? Or do they just not care?
Yeah, like, I feel like it's either one of two things, right? Either the entire department is crooked, or at least everybody that was there was crooked, or this is like punishment for the new girl for trying to snitch on a cop. Yeah. Which, like, I obviously we're not cops, but I've heard, like, in certain places, like, that's like a no-no, like snitching on each other. Like, you kind of aren't supposed to kind of do that. Like, cops are kind of supposed to be this brotherhood. Crazy. So it could potentially be that, because Connors does make a point to point out, like, yeah, you tried to get me arrested, you tried to bust me, this, that, and the other. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, yeah, which one is it? Is it the entire department's crooked, or is it simply the fact of, hey, this new chick tried to come in here, tried to arrest one of our quote-unquote better detectives, and we don't have her back in this situation. Right. So yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see how that kind of unfolds and leads to other things. I think even, I cannot remember the head priest who was basically narrating.
I can't remember his name either.
But one of the things that he said during his narration of talking about, like, heroes and regression and things like that, pertaining, or at least it was during a scene that Detective O'Reilly was there, was like this idea of eventually they fall from grace and they start finding their own form of justice, which I thought really stood out based on what we talked about in the last video when we were doing that little recap of what could potentially be happening in season 2 of with Detective O'Reilly potentially becoming Mayhem and seeking her own form of justice because she starts to feel like the justice system is just that corrupt.
Right.
So I was kind of intrigued by that, this maybe being a prelude to that in season 2.
Yeah.
So other than that, I know you were saying like there were some other things about Tandy that just really like upset you. And I know there were some things that, like, for me, there were some things that Tyrone's mom kind of did that, like, really, really upset me.
Well, no, I was just upset about the fact that I thought she had kind of learned from the first couple episodes where, you know, you can't take out your problems on everybody else. And the fact that she regressed all the way back to that is just a little annoying.
We actually kind of skipped over this, the whole interaction between her and Yvetta, which was hilarious to me.
We did. Yeah, we just skipped that, yeah.
Which was hilarious to me because this is the first time we've seen Yvette in like the last couple episodes, and we finally get to see her, and it's the first time she gets to meet Tandy. And I love how she was all about sticking up for her man in the beginning until she found out Tandy had powers, and then she was like not about that action at all. Like she dipped so quick.
She did.
That it was just like, yeah, she didn't really want nothing to do with that. But it was kind of funny the look on her face, Yvetta's face of mixture. I got a feeling that she felt a little betrayed. Like I think she knew about this divine pairing between Tyrone and somebody else. I think she was a little bit caught off guard that it was Tyrone and another girl. That's my opinion.
I don't know. I think she was just caught off guard in general, and I think that I don't know. I think she was more so upset that maybe she didn't fully believe that Tyrone had anything to do with it. And when she saw the thing happen with Tandy, she kind of felt like, oh, there is something going on with you and you didn't tell me. So I think that's why she was upset, because Tyrone didn't basically say that he had powers. But in his defense, like, when would he have told you?
Right. You know he's not an open person, so obviously he's not going to come out and tell you.
Yeah.
So outside of that, the other thing that, like I said, that got me really upset is Tyrone's mom. Now, let me be the first to say, like, I obviously have a mom who's very protective as well. She can sometimes, you know, be very emotional and be very cautious. So I understand where Tyrone's mom was coming from in her viewpoint. I understand where it comes from. Mm-hmm. She can still be wrong, though. Like, I want to kind of point that out, that she can still be wrong, because she basically tried to instill in her child that allowing your fear to paralyze you and to keep is the perfect thing to keep you from seeking justice. Yeah. And Tyrone's standpoint is that no, that justice should always be pushing to do the right thing, even if it means putting you in danger. Yeah. Because I guess in a way he doesn't say this, but I guess in so many words he was trying to say, like, he'd rather be a martyr than just a bystander. Yeah. And to see bad things happen and never say anything. Exactly. So she made me upset. I understand where she's coming from, but the fact that, like, as smart as she thought she was being, that she couldn't understand that you are instilling negative condensations to your child. And he even points it out, like, what about me? What about what about my children? What about your grandchildren? Is this the way you want them to think? And also flipping it on her, like, you want me to be perfect, but even you said that I could do everything perfect and still end up in a bad situation. So exactly. I love when the show has these moments because they're so real and grounded, and I can relate to them because I remember having similar conversations with my parents. So to have that conversation and to see, this is just another step for me, in my opinion, of Tyrone taking this step to being a hero. Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair to his mom, though, she does make another good point, though, to him about how he is more than just his anger and his fear and those negative emotions, that he is more than that, and which is what we were able to see from Tyrone the last couple episodes, that he is brave, that he is smart, that he is thoughtful. So I don't want to completely bash her because she did say some good things too, but I know that was a scene where I felt like a lot of people could see that and be like, oh, she's so right and she's so caring. I don't think she's very caring. I don't think she was right, though, in her approach.
And you have a good point. She wasn't completely right, but as a mom, I could see where
I get the
feels the way that she feels.
Right, I get that. It's just like you were saying, I feel like it puts a negative condensation, and even taking it into real world perspective, with everything that's going on in the modern day, we do almost in a way have a right and a responsibility to stand up in these types of situations, to be a voice. We may not get justice right when we think we should get it, but by constantly pushing the issue and putting the pressure on our justice system, we can potentially get the results that we're looking for.
Right.
So that's a lot of what happened in this episode. I mean, there are so many other things that we could really touch on, like individually that went on in this episode. But I'm really looking forward to the season finale. I think it's going to be amazing. It looks like it feels well timed too. Like this is the perfect time to wrap it up and leave us hanging for whatever happens in season 2.
Well, I mean, it was well written, so it doesn't feel like they left anything out. So it feels like this is going to be a season finale where we're not like, oh, but you missed all this stuff. It's going to be a really well-written, I feel it. It's going to be a well-written season finale.
Absolutely. So be sure to catch us here next week when we do our season finale of Cloak and Dagger. Yeah. Like always, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we will, continue this conversation in the comments, guys. Bye. See you later.